Hi, this is David White from Sportsman's Emporium. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about fly tying thread and the different types and sizes that are out there. For the beginner fly tyer, that stuff can be pretty confusing. So I'm going to try to take a little mystery out of it for you today. In general, there's, two types of thread. There's a lot of different threads out there. But in general, you have your standard thread, which is kind of a round, more of a braided style thread. And then you have what's called flat wax thread. The differences in those are the flat waxed is it's flat and waxed. It lays flat on your hook, so you get less bulk when you're building up your fly. And if you're struggling with proportions and getting your proportions right, it's a good thread to use. A disadvantage of it is it's a little bit slippery, and it can slide up and down the hook shank pretty easy as compared to something like a unithread, which is more of a braided thread that's, rounded and dry, and it doesn't slip as much. And that's really the two differences. The flat wax is more popular though, because with flat waxed, it's stranded thread, which means you can separate the fibers and put dubbing in the middle of it and dub your bodies. And those are really the two standard thread types until you get into the heavy thread like gel spun and Kevlar. But basically unithread is probably, I would say, the most popular here for dry fly tyers. Guys who like to tie dry flies tend to like the light stuff and the aught. And when you're looking at the different thread types, you're always going to see a numbering system. There's two different styles of numbers. There's the aught system, which will have, basically it looks like a fraction with a 0 on the end of it. It'll have 6/0, and that's for 6/0, or an 8/0, and that's for 8/0. 8/0 is a lighter thread than the 6/0. A 6/0 is a pretty standard thread. It will tie your flies anywhere from like a size 10 to getting up to about a size 18, and anything from size 18 and smaller all the way down to size 28, you would want to use the 8/0 thread. And that's really the size differences. Now the other types of thread, this is ultra thread, and it's really popular. It goes by a number. It just has one number. For instance, this stuff here with the red label is a 70 denier. And this goes by the denier system, which is really the thread industry standard outside of fly tying. They measure the weight of their thread by the denier system and not the aught system. In general, the smaller the number, the lighter the thread. So the 70 denier is really just a 1 pound breaking strength thread. This is the flat wax, and it's a really good thread for tying really small dry flies. The 70 size is good for flies anywhere from size 18 up to size 32. And you can tie the really small stuff with this. One size up would be the 140 denier, which is really a great general purpose thread. It's excellent for beginners because you're going to be able to tie all your, size 10 through size 18, your common dry flies and nymph flies. Basically, it's the yellow label 140 thread, twice as strong. Going up into a little bit bigger thread, like if you want to get into tying size 8 flies and smaller, all the way down to 1/0, woolly buggers, streamers, stuff like that, the 210 denier thread is really good for the heavy stuff. It's got a 3 pound breaking strength, which is pretty strong. You can tie the bigger materials on and really pull down hard enough to tighten them down. I use this thread on most of my streamers until I get into the big musky flies where I'm tying on like 2 and 3 and 4/0 hooks. This is a great streamer thread, and it's good for an intro into deer hair tying. But deer hair tying, when you're getting into the bigger bass flies, saltwater flies, musky flies, stuff like that, you would want to step up into something like a 280 denier. This has the 4 pound breaking strength. It's a real heavy thread. You don't want to use this on small flies because it's going to bulk up really quick because it is so heavy. but this will get you time flies, you know, down to 3-4 hooks. And any bass deer hair flies, this is great for tying deer hair and doing the big bass bugs. 280 denier is a great thread for big flies. Now, if you're really tying the big flies and you want to tie on, you know, anything from 1 to 8-aught hooks, and you really are trying to crank your deer hair down and tying big warm water and saltwater flies, there's a gel spun thread that has an 8-pound breaking strength. This is gel spun 100, and this stuff is so strong that it would probably cut through your skin before it would break. It's really, this has been the best stuff I've used to tie deer hair with. There's only one problem, in that if you pull too hard, it'll actually cut through your materials, and a lot of times it doesn't want to break. So this is a really strong thread. Very few people would use this. It's more of a specialty thread, but if you're getting into big flies, the gel spun ultra thread is definitely the best choice out there.